Hello and welcome back to Super Hell, aka the Mystery Spotcast, a show where two recovering Supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch so no one else ever has to watch Supernatural again. I'm Klaudia, my pronouns are she, her, and you can find me on social media at Klaudia Says, K-A-L-U-D-I-A Says.
I'm Ollie, I use any pronouns, and you can find me on social media at Ollie Fresh, that's fresh with a PH. Hi guys.
Yeah.
Hey. I feel like, you know what, we don't ever talk to you guys enough, to the audience. How are you doing?
I mean...
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. I really hope you didn't say anything super traumatic and upsetting just there. Because then I would feel really bad for saying that's great. Anyway, do you guys want to talk about Supernatural? Come on with us.
We don't have too many pieces of Supernatural news for you. Except for that apparently Jensen Ackles at a convention both confirmed Castiel and didn't at the same time, who was shocked.
As is his way.
Yeah, where he
as is his way.
He said the words, "Oh, it was text, not subtext," as a joke, but then he also was talking about how it. What did he say? He was like, "Oh, well," and like people like, "Was it reciprocated?" He was like, "Well, it was definitely a thing that Castiel felt or something," and you're like, "Okay, girl."
Yeah. So basically, he's at a convention. He says, like, yes, Dean knew that Cass's confession to Dean, like the Castiel confession scene, he was like, Dean knew that it was romantic.
Yeah.
And then people are like, because the real question is like, for me, because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like this is so crazy. Because Jensen like doesn't talk about it all that much, which is crazy.
That was the crazy part, is like, if you didn't know already, Jensen Ackles avoids it, like, even though Castiel pays his fucking bills, he avoids it like the plague. So him saying that was, it was a 9/11 for us.
I was talking to Mel, my spouse, about it, and I was saying, like, I really think that Jensen Ackles knows that Castiel shippers are what keep him living the lifestyle that he lives. Because I really think, like, if you genuinely had, like, a one-on-one secret conversation with him, and we're like, so what do you think happened with Castiel? He'd be like, oh my god, I really don't understand how anyone got that. Like, I really think that he thinks his acting choices were not... There was nothing going on his end. I really, truly think he believes he was playing it straight, which is just like, again, and I think it's a different interpretation for everyone, but there are so many little acting choices, and with the actual, like, Cass confession, it's just like, I don't know how you can interpret it, at least not a little bit.
It's very...
Like, you could say, oh, like, maybe he had some feelings, or, oh, maybe, like, he had... some sort of thoughts. I'm just saying, I think the reason that Castiel didn't go full canon was because of it.
No, I do believe that actually is the reason. I do believe that actually is the reason.
Allegedly. No,
I don't think it is. I don't think it is alleged. Like, I think I think someone has, like, talked about it or something at some point. Well, like, I don't know.
I don't have a source, so I'm going to say allegedly, so Jensen Ackles' crazy legal team doesn't come for us to take this episode down.
But wait! This is the only other piece of Supernatural news that has happened since we last recorded, so sorry for our delay. Things occur in our lives. Was, Supernatural creates more fucking couples than The Bachelor is a tweet that I saw that, if you didn't know, two characters that we have not got into, so if you don't already watch Supernatural, as you should not be doing.
Not true.
Have we? No.
Ty Olsson was... Sorry, spoiler. Ty Olsson played a vampire earlier. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Right. Go with what you were going to say. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm spoiling the announcement.
Yeah.
That you probably all have already heard about.
Yeah. Two characters who are the glup shittos that everybody knows and loves. Garth, who plays a werewolf, or at least he becomes a werewolf later. Spoilers.
I like the idea of Garth plays the part of werewolf. Yeah. You make it sound like Garth's like a Shakespearean actor, like, who gets really into method acting.
Garth is introduced for a while before he becomes a werewolf. Like,
yeah. Garth is a hunter. He's kind of like a wannabe hunter. And they're like, oh, okay, Garth. Like, you can... He's kind of like... I feel like he's kind of in the same vein as the Ghost Facers.
Yeah.
Not the same, he is a much more he's much more serious about being like an actual hunter, but he kind of has that level of whimsy where it's like, this guy is not serious. Like, this guy is not actually, like, he'll get his ass beat if he goes up against anything real.
He is a twink, that has never...
He low-key is.
He's a twink who never experienced twink death. which
he's like a grown-up twink, which is kind of scary,
yeah.
but like it's cool when he does it, but if someone else, don't try to do it if you're not him.
I saw somebody, I don't know, in TikTok or somewhere who was like, who are some twinks who never went through twink death? And someone said Hideo Kojima and Junji Ito. And I was like, they're not wrong. And apparently the actor who plays Garth, like, not really, no. Like,
oh my god, the actor who plays Garth, put some respect on DJ's name, please.
Sorry. So DJ, and then the character who plays Benny, who has appeared in...
The actor who plays Benny, not the character who plays Benny.
I'm suffering right now. The actor who plays the vampire Benny, who is so homo for Dean in the show, by the way.
And I will also add, the actor who plays him, Ty Olsson, who we're talking about right now, has said at a convention that he's like, yeah, I think Dean and Benny were fucking in purgatory. And he has also said at a recent convention, he was like, oh yeah, I've read Dean Benny fanfiction.
Like, and
he's so real. Me too, bitch. What?
He's so real for that. This is a part that we haven't gotten to yet. When we get to it, we will discuss it. But he also played a vampire before in this show that we have discussed briefly, but not the same vampire. So that's confusing. Or
is it? We may never know.
Also, these characters never meet in Supernatural. So these actors never actually work together in Supernatural. I want to say that they met like at a convention or something. And here's the thing. We have found out that they are apparently gay married and love each other very much because DJ, who plays Garth,
DJ Qualls
went on a podcast and was talking about how he met and loves his husband, or his fiance, I guess. They're not married yet, very much. And everybody was like, wait, what? Because they had tweeted things that implied this, like, before. And they were like, yeah, how did you not know we were together? Like, we weren't closed off about it or anything. Like, they tweeted a picture of them kissing and people thought it was a joke. It was not a joke. They are in gay love for each other. He literally is like, and I can't wait to grow old together. And here's the thing. Here's the craziest part about the situation. There's a Supernatural gift for that. Mm-hmm. Even though they were never in the show together, at one point, Dean talks about a werepire, a werewolf vampire, as a joke at one point. And now everyone's like, oh my god, Garth and Benny, werepire. So that's what you missed on Supernatural Glee, the show that never ends. Is there's gay couples coming from that show, just not Castiel.
Oh. Castiel, the thing, I think it would be so funny. I think it would be so funny if, like, because I feel like, here's the thing. I feel like it's clear Jensen wants another season of Supernatural, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, because he wanted the Winchesters. The Winchesters wrongfully got canceled.
God.
I say this as someone who really did end up enjoying the Winchesters. Winchesters wrongfully got canceled. They cannot... But the Supernatural IP is so large. I know Jensen Ackles is hoping that a streaming service is going to pick that up. I know he wants Supernatural Season 16, a Max original. I know he is waiting on it. And that call, my dear, it is not coming. At least not anytime soon. You need to wait at least 10 more years for it to be more nostalgic.
Yeah.
And then maybe we will get a reboot in which Dean is played by a different actor, which I think would be funny as shit. But my point is, Jensen clearly wants this. So people keep saying, like, oh my gosh, like, maybe the reason that he's, like, so mum's the word on Castiel is because he doesn't want, like, he doesn't want to spoil anything for a future show. I'm like, hey, girls, I remember, maybe a lot of you, I think, are new Supernatural fans, and, like, we're not on Tumblr in 2012 when it was a thing, like, when Super Hulock was happening, because I remember, I was talking to someone online, like, on Twitter, and I mentioned something about, like, oh, the convention that Jensen said, like, I don't want to talk about Castiel, and then
that was, like, 9/11.
Knew exactly what day that happened, and it was so funny, but, it is crazy to me because I'm like, I remember when Jensen was like, someone was like, Dean Winchester's like really been helpful for me to like discovering who I am and like discovering that I'm bi. And he goes, oh, let's not go there. Like, He is, and that was a huge controversy for him. He's probably learned since then to just shut the hell up. And that's, I think, his thing is that's what he's going for. People are like, oh, he's being secretive because he wants another season. No, he's trying to shut the hell up so he doesn't get, like, so he doesn't lose his gravy train.
Well, and also because he can't be like Misha Collins coming in and out of the closet. Yeah, so...
Dude, Misha Collins also... I'm sorry, I feel like we're just, like, talking mad shit. And I'm like, Misha Collins is engaging in such unemployed behavior. Like,
constantly.
I feel like he is tweeting about Castiel, hoping that it'll get him more convention invites. She's like, guys, when I go to a convention, I talk about Castiel, and then you get more ticket sales. Please, does anyone want to hire me? I'm free.
Literally.
No.
Yeah. No,
we know.
Also, we don't need a season 16 of it. We just need them to redo the last episode to what it was supposed to be, that it didn't get to be because of COVID. Because they said, and I think about this constantly, that there was supposed to be a conversation between Castiel and Dean in that fucking bar as Carry On Wayward Son is playing in heaven. And the fact that I never got that conversation, I will die mad about it. Or die mad about it.
No. But here's the problem. We were talking about this. I want to know what that last Dean and Cass conversation would have been.
To know.
But here's what I think, and I'm going to say my theory, and I'm a hater. I'm not a hater. Don't get it. Well, I am a hater.
Yeah, you are.
But I'm not like trying to say this because I'm trying to crush anyone's dreams. I'm trying to set our expectations.
Oh, it would have been terrible. It would have been so bad.
I think that it's almost 100% chance that he would have been like, Cass, I really appreciate you saying that, and I love you too, man. Like a brother. You're like family to me.
No.
And then Cass would be like, oh, so should I kill myself? I'll just kill myself. That sounds great, Dean. I'm happy with that. Whatever you're happy with.
I know that it would have been a absolutely, like, it would have been like a second plane has hit the Twin Towers, and like if we would have had a second November 5th, because it would have been like, and then there would have been controversy of like, oh, so you know homoed after the fact. Well, like in the Berenstain Bears universe, that is what's happening. Like we didn't get canon the second time in Spanish. Like we got the best case scenario. I know the best case scenario in this case is a pandemic happening, which is kind of on par for Supernatural.
The fact that it's like, what's worse, the original conversation that would have happened between Dean and Cass, or the pandemic?
Like, it's like,
guys, okay, also, speaking of the pandemic, it is still going on. Y'all have better be wearing your masks.
Wear a mask when you work.
Please wear your masks. Immunocompromised people rely on, the community to keep them safe. We need to make it as comfortable as possible and as safe as possible for those who either don't have a choice to be out, so that's your service workers, your people who are providing you, with all the things that you need to live, who are doing customer-facing jobs. Please wear your mask. We're protecting them, and we're protecting the vulnerable members of our community. So,
and if you don't give a fuck about the vulnerable members of your community, if you keep getting COVID, you'll become one of them. So, think about that for a second. Anyway, I think Dean Winchester wouldn't wear a mask.
I feel like that, or Dean Winchester would wear a mask and would like triple mask and be like really, really upset. He'd be like, Sammy, I don't want to get this. I don't want to get this. And Sam's like, dude, we're wearing N95s, like, we're gonna be fine. And he's like, I don't know about that. Like, I feel like he'd get really conspiratorial in the other way, and he'd low-key be right. Like, I feel like he's washing off the grocery, like, cleaning off the groceries.
Oh, absolutely.
Every single time.
100%.
And Sam's like, listen, I appreciate that you're on top of it, but, like, this feels like a little much. And he's like, oh, are you gonna say that it's a little much when you have long COVID, Sammy?
I feel like Cass would do that, even though it doesn't affect him. He would be like,
Cass would go out without a mask on, and everyone would be like, what is wrong with you? He'd be like, oh no, it doesn't affect me. And they're like, no. No. Cass has to wear, Cass is wearing his mask upside down. Let's be so real.
Anyways, should we talk about these next two episodes of Supernatural, which, the way that we timed it, we didn't mean it to, but it's perfect because it's a two-parter. Yes, we're discussing a two-parter today. I'm so excited.
It's so exciting. let's get into it. This episode has some crazy moments in it. It's a two-parter, which we, said. Very exciting. Also, fun fact, this is the 69th episode of Supernatural.
Nice!
And it's called I Know What You Did Last Summer.
The 69th episode, and this is the one where Sam fucks.
It is. Spoiler.
Sam has fucked before, but
It is season 4, episode 9. As I said, it's called I Know What You Did Last Summer. This episode honestly is pretty good, but there are a lot of moments where I'm just like, girl, why the hell did we do that?
Yeah. I feel like this episode has a lot of, girl, what the hell? And then the second episode slays boots a lot.
Oh, see, I feel like the first episode is better. I feel like the first half of the second episode isn't as good.
Yeah,
but then it gets better by the end. Then the end is better.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm kind of like, I remember watching this the first time, like these 2 episodes when I was first watching Supernatural, and I was like, these are fucking pointless. Like, these are stupid, pointless episodes. And then rewatching them, like, now, I'm like, what was wrong with me? Why did I think that? These episodes bang.
Yeah.
And I think it was internalized misogyny.
Yeah, well, and this is where we have to step in with our note of, when we say that an episode in season 4 is good, do not take that as an indication that the show is good. It is tricking you. These moments are fleeting, and they will go away.
Yeah, especially as we get closer and closer to the end. We're still, like, only halfway through this season, but as we get closer and closer to the end of this season, trust, the good episodes are truly, truly fleeting. Like, we are getting very close to the brink. The episode starts. We see a woman who has red hair. She has very red hair. Extremely red hair.
She walked so Charlie could run.
Literally. But she is, like, she's in clearly, like, a psych ward. Like, sitting in a bed, kind of, like, rocking back and forth, looking out the window. And we hear someone saying, Anna, do you know where you are? Do you know why you're here? So we realize that this girl, Anna, is being talked to by a therapist. And she is like, what is the place called? I think it's called, like, she's like, do you know where you are? You're at the Connor Beverly Behavioral Medicine Center. Do you remember what happened? And Anna's like, yeah, I don't know. And the therapist is like, first of all, the therapist says, you were hysterical. Not something I think a therapist should probably say. I feel like hysteria is really, like, kind of an outdated medical term at this point.
Yeah, where they're playing fast and loose with psychiatry in this episode, honestly.
Yeah. But so her therapist, psychiatrist, whatever. I think the subtitle said therapist. But I'm like, she is clearly, like, a psychiatric counselor or, like, a psychiatrist or something. I don't know. But, she's talking, they kind of talk a little bit about, like, oh, well, like, you were hearing voices and you were, like, thrashing around, like, attacking people. Like, what was going on? Like, you can talk to me. Like, I'm here to listen. And Anna's like, well, the end is coming. And she's like, the therapist is like, oh, like, the end? And Anna's like, yes, the apocalypse is coming. And the therapist is like, oh, like the apocalypse, like, from the Bible? And she's like, basically, same end, like, but I hear them, they're telling me that it's coming. And there's a demon named Lilith, and she's trying to break 66 seals to release Lucifer. And the therapist is like, okay, you said there's 66 seals? And she goes, no, there are over 600 seals, but Lilith only needs to break 66 of them, and we have no idea which 66 she'll break, and that's why the angels are losing.
I just want to say, this is a very good exposition device. I'm like, okay, Like, instead of just having, like, Angel pop in and Castiel tells us this, I was like, all right, that's okay storytelling. All right, Sarah Gamble.
Yeah. So the therapist is clearly like, okay, like, you have religious psychosis. Okay, cool. She doesn't say that, but that's, like, probably what's going on in her head. We cut. It's a little later. Anna is, like, drawing. It's dark. Anna's drawing in a notebook. She's drawing these circles, these patterns that have a lot of, like, not like watercolors, but almost like these jewel tony, like, patterns. And a guy, an orderly, knocks on the door and is like, oh, Anna, it's time for your meds. Anna. And she looks over at him and is like, oh my God, what is wrong with your face? And he goes, this also, I was like, shut the hell up. But he was like, what's the matter, sweetie? Why the hell are you calling someone sweetie? It's quickly explained, but, like, that part was phrased like it was normal.
I was like,
and I'm like,
ew.
Ew. But he's like, what's the matter? And also, for reference, just, like, in case you don't know, Anna appears to be, like, in her early mid-20s. Like, right? That feels about right.
Yeah. Is that, like, college age, maybe?
Yeah. Maybe, like, a little, yeah. I think that seems right. I think there's a reference to that. Whatever. But she's, like, freaking out because this orderly came in to give her medicine. And he is, like, she is saying, like, oh my God, your face is messed up. To us, he looks like a normal guy. But she's, like, freaking out. She's like, you are so messed up. Like, what is wrong with you? His eyes flash black. He's a demon. And he's like, oh, what's wrong? Shh, shh, shh. Quiet now. And he closes the door. And it's clear that he's, like, making to attack her. And she grabs, there's, like, this big, like, dresser in this room that I guess is on wheels. And I'm like, they would not have this in the psych ward.
Yeah,
so
I was like,
jot
what?
that down. But she uses it to, like, she starts, like, looking at him and, like, having this weird moment. And then, like, he gets, like, smashed up backwards up against the window. Like, she's not touching him. Like, but it's, like, some sort of power is happening. And then this dresser, like, flies forward and smashes him. And, like, his head hits the window and breaks the glass. And she jumps up and is like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. So she, like, breaks out and starts running. And it's so funny because, like, she has these powers in this moment and never uses them again. And, like, it's also said explicitly later that she doesn't have any powers.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
I feel like they write, sometimes I feel like this, like, Supernatural writers, and this is not anyone in particular, but I feel like Supernatural writers sometimes write an episode from start to finish without going back for edits.
No, literally.
Like, it's not like, oh, let's make sure this is consistent with the end of the episode. It's like, no, we're just gonna, like, stream of conscious.
Fuck it, we ball. And that explains a lot
literally
about this show.
We cut. Sam is drunk out of his mind. They're at a bar. He is playing pool with some guy who's clearly far more sober. And they keep going back and forth and making bets of, like, crazy amounts of money. And Dean walks over and is like, hey, dude, like, to the other guy, he's like, you gotta stop making bets with my brother. Clearly he's had one too many to drink. He's not really in this state of mind to be doing this. And the guy's like, oh, well, the guy's like, oh, he keeps making bets. And Sam's like, I'll wager $500.
And this is also, it's like, it's very explicitly out of character. Like, this is a thing that Dean would do, not Sam. So you're like, girl, what is going on?
Yeah. But Sam is like, oh, I'll wager $500. And this guy's like, yeah, sure. And Dean's like, oh, $500. You're just gonna wager $500. Okay, fine. But then Sam looks over, and in one of the booths, Ruby is sitting there. And he goes, you know what, keep the money. And walks over to Ruby. And Dean's like, what? Keep the money? What? But then he follows Sam over. And Dean, his ass is not like Ruby. He shows up and he's like, girl, fuck off. What are you doing here? You've got a lot of nerve showing up here. And she's like, okay, before you, like, bite my head off, I just have a message to tell you. I am dropping off some information on a potential case that I think you guys really should follow up on. And Dean's like, well, we're already on a case, so screw off. And she's like, oh, really? What case? He's like, and she's like, okay, just listen. There's a girl called Anna Milton. She escaped a psych ward, and she was getting chased by demons, and she's got to be really important to them because the order is to bring her back alive. So, might be something you guys want to check out. And Dean is clearly like, girl, we're not doing this. But Sam is like, oh, what's the place called? And then it cuts. So clearly she tells them where she escaped from, and they go. We cut. The boys are in the car having a heart-to-heart. There was a moment here. Dean is like being kind of quiet, and Sam's like, if you have something to say, like, you can say it. And Dean's like, yeah, this is stupid. Like, we're driving it's a 3 days drive to get to this hospital on information from a woman we don't really trust. And Sam's like, well, like, we've driven further for less. And I'm like, you guys do a lot of driving. I would love to see the mileage on the Impala.
Like,
it's gotta be, like, fucked up.
How is that car still moving? Like, that's...
And it's, like, old-ass car. Like, that is not... I think about that often. But Sam is basically like, well, you know, like, the other thing that happens, like, at the beginning of the scene, Sam is on the phone, and he's like, oh, can you send us over her medical records? Thanks. So Sam's also like, so, like, we know this girl is real. It's important that we go find her. And Dean is like, we know that the girl is real, but we don't know that this is, like, actually a case. Like, I feel like I'm not pissed that we're going after this case. I'm not mad that we're trying to figure that out. I'm pissed about the fact that Ruby gave you this tip because you think of her as, I think he says something, he's like, the hell bitch is practically family. Like, I was in hell and suddenly you and Ruby are best friends. So, what the hell? And Sam's like, well, you know, Ruby helped me go after Lilith, so I trust her. And Dean's like, okay, so, like, do you want to elaborate on that? Like, I'd love to know the actual, like, what actually happened, because, you know, like, I want to understand. And Sam, who's a real bitch about it, says, oh, sure, Dean, let's trade stories. You first. How was hell? Don't spare the details.
Which, I'll say this. Very cunty of him, hilarious, but also, I think they're a little different, hun. Like, he was in hell. He was in hell.
Also, like, literally in the last episode, at the end of the last episode, Dean was like, girl, like, I will tell you, really fucked up shit happened to me in hell. I really don't want to talk about it because you will never get it and I just can't do it. Like, basically tell Sam, like, it was so traumatic, I literally cannot talk about it to you right now. So Sam is switching up.
Sam is
being I guess he's a little brother, that's his job. But, so Dean goes quiet, because he's like, whatever, I'm not having this argument with you. We cut. There's a little plate that says 6 months earlier. Sam is drunk out of his mind. And he's, like, burying something in the ground. You zoom out, realize he's at, like, a dirt crossroads. So he's summoning a crossroads demon. And I'm like, I feel like if you make a crossroads demon deal while drunk, like, that shouldn't be binding.
No, literally. And like, you know what? I think that's one of the reforms that Crowley brought when he was bringing the place into tip-top shape. Like, there were rules. And I have to respect that.
Retweet. I've been saying that a lot recently. Do you guys remember that? Like, years and years ago when Twitter, like, worked, when people would say retweet to things.
Or on Tumblr, they would say, like, this.
Basically, it's like the Twitter version of that. But I've been saying that a lot recently. I think we need to bring it back. Anyway, but Sam is summoning a crossroads demon, and he does it. He finishes it, and he's standing there, and no one's showing up. And he starts, like, screaming, like, "Where are you? Come on!" And then we see a guy. And this is the first time we've seen a male crossroads demon.
No,
he's
literally.
wearing, like, a suit. Do you think they were like, is Sam? Do you think in hell they were like, is he gay?
Yeah.
Should we send a man? Let's send a man.
And they're like, oh, wrong brother.
Yeah, literally. But, so a guy shows up and he's like, well, I was debating if I should come or not. And Sam is like, listen, please. And he's like, no, I don't know. Last time, a crossroads demon showed up, you shot one of my coworkers. So, with the cult, because last time Sam summoned a crossroads demon, he did shoot, her with the cult. But he's like, yeah, no, that's pretty messed up. So do you still have that, like, demon killing knife? Or there are, like, traps around? And Sam's like, no traps. I have the knife. Here, you can see it. Because it's, Ruby's knife that kills demons. And he's like, fine, here. There's nothing. I'm not here to play games. And the guy's like, They start slowly, like, walking closer to each other. And the guy's like, oh, so what? Like, you want to make a deal? What is the quote? I have it written down. Yeah, he says, let me get... Oh, it's in the... Okay. Oh, it's actually in the wiki. Shout out to the Supernatural wiki. He says, let me guess. You want to make a deal? Round and round the Winchesters go. Sorry, Sam. That's not going to happen. And kind of, like, taunts him.
Here's the thing about that.
Sam...
Here's the thing about that quote, though. Like... That is the first of, like, many times where someone will say that to one of the Winchesters and one of them is trying to sacrifice themselves for the other. You're like,
I don't think it's the first. Like, they have said this before many times.
I'm like, this is one of the early ones. I'm just saying, like, literally, the number of scenes where some fuck ass is like, oh, so you're going to sacrifice yourself for your brother? Groundbreaking.
Yeah. Go, girl. Give us florals for spring. But the guy's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. And Sam, like, walks up to him and uses the knife to pin his hand to a barrel. Because I guess, okay, the other thing, too, is the knife, I thought the whole thing was that the knife, like, kills demons, but they're kind of retconning it to be like, the knife can hurt demons, but I'm like, I feel like a regular knife could still hurt them. It just wouldn't.
I guess it hurts,
like, impair
more,
them.
and then the implication is, you have to stab them through the heart. So I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, this magic knife, the lore of it has changed. So basically, just keep in mind, if you're confused, so are we. But he uses the knife to, like, stab this guy's hand down, and is like, he's like, I don't want to make a deal. I don't want to save him. I just want to trade places with Dean. Like, he's like, just, and the guy's like, no, I'm not doing that. And he's like, just take me. Like, it's a fair trade. And the demon is like, that's not what it's about. Like, it's not, I don't want your soul. He's like, doesn't Lilith want me dead? Like, just take me and I'll be dead. And he's like, it's not about that. Dean's in hell. That's where we want him to be. We've got everything exactly the way we want it. You can kill me. I've made peace with my lord. And then we hear Sam make a cut with the knife, and it flashes back to them sitting in the Impala. I'm just saying, I really wish that guy had made a deal with Sam, because I do think it would have been funny to see Sam kiss a man on Supernatural. Not that I think men kissing is funny, just the idea of Sam kissing men is kind of funny.
Oh, absolutely. And it was also like how we were like, did their father kiss the yellow-eyed demon? We'll never know.
I would need confirmation. I think that Sam, like, I feel like Sam is the kind of guy who, like, I don't know if he would have done it in, like, when he was in college in, like, 2003 or 4, whenever he would have been in school. Like, I don't know if he would have done it then. Maybe. But he seems like the kind of guy who would, like, in college, someone would call him gay, and he'd be like, well, I don't think I'm gay. Maybe I'll try, like, making out with a guy and I'll see how it feels. And then he does, and it's like, yeah, okay, I don't know if that was quite my thing.
No, literally.
But I'm happy I tried. Like,
literally.
I feel like Sam just feels much more secure in his sexuality and masculinity than Dean does.
And honestly, there is an example from these 2 episodes that I do feel supports that hypothesis.
Yeah. And I also think it's not just, like, more than Dean does. Like, I don't know. I feel like Sam is very, like... Something I do like about Sam is that I feel like he's consistently very secure in his, like... his mortal self. Like, he's like, okay,
because he had less time for John Winchester to fuck him up.
Yeah, he has strong convictions, and even when he doubts them, I feel like he's still like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing what I think I like. He's always striving to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like Sam has a certain level of like he's comfortable with, like, obviously he questions who he is, like, when he finds out, like, with all of the demon blood and with all that stuff, like, he questions that, but it's like he knows who he, as a person, knows who he is. Yeah. And I think that's, like, it's interesting to see someone like that deal with all of this, like, fucked up shit happening to them.
Yeah. Because Dean
would change him.
Dean is realizing this stuff about himself along the way. Sam already knows about this, but is just being thrown around like a rag doll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we cut back. I think it was a commercial break. Whatever. They're at the hospital. They're talking to the psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, whatever the fuck she is. They're talking to her, and she's like, yeah, it's really crazy. Like, she burst, she, like, managed to break out. We think that she may have planned it, like, because, you know, she used a lot of force. We think she may have hidden behind the door to ambush the orderly. And Sam and Dean are like, oh, doesn't the orderly remember anything? And she's like, no, he doesn't. Like, he got knocked out, so we really don't know. But yeah, it's crazy that this happened. And, you know, I mean, yeah, it's messed up. And Sam and I think it's one of them is like, oh, but she doesn't really have a history of mental health, like, crises or psychosis or anything before this. And she's like, no, well, that's how it can happen sometimes with schizophrenia. Like, it just shows up one day, or sometimes it just suddenly gets worse. So she's having this sort of religious, like, psychosis this episode. And she hands them Anna's sketchbook, because they're posing as, like, FBI agents, I think, because they're, like, trying to find her. But she's like, yeah, it's crazy. She thought the apocalypse was coming, and yeah, we don't know. And they start, like, Dean starts kind of thumbing through her little sketchbook, and she has written, Sam Hain, the next seal is broken. And as you'll remember, Sam Hain was a character who was one of the seals. So they're like, okay, like, so she actually, like, knew something. So this is, like, real.
And I will say they are doing some great face acting here, because they're like they're supposed to be, like, you know, not shocked by this, but the two of them are like, oh shit, like, and a key thing is that one of the sketches is a sketch, and we saw her sketching this earlier, of a stained glass window, like, on a church, and they also say that she's like a deacon's daughter. So they're like, that must be the reasoning for, like, the religious overtones.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, well, like, she was a deeply religious person, and that's probably why that happened. So they're like, oh, that's so crazy. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. I'm sure it's nothing. It's probably, but there's a part where Dean thumbs through the sketchbook, and she has written something about one of the seals, and he goes, oh, that's from Revelations. And the woman goes, well, when in Revelations do they talk about, like, this? And he goes, oh, it's a little known interpretation.
No, when they talk about jack-o'-lanterns, because it's the part about Sam Hain.
Because she's drawn jack-o'-lanterns, and she's like, when did they talk about jack-o'-lanterns? And he's like, oh, it's a little known translation. But that's funny. But so they're like, oh, fuck, okay, like, this is legit. We need to find this girl. They go to Anna's parents' house. Oh, okay, here's another thing I wanted to say about this scene before we move on. How many people do you think in the supernatural universe get treated for some form of psychosis or delusions because they're like, I saw a fucking vampire, or I saw a fucking ghost, or whatever, and then people are like, you're crazy, you're going to the psych ward? Like, how many people do you think got treated for that? How many people got put on antipsychotics because they saw something that was actually real?
I mean, I think about that in, like, any supernatural, like, modern supernatural universe. I'm like, damn, they got fucked for real. Because let me just say, being on something like Topamax when you actually don't need it, that shit is hell.
Yeah, well, I can't say the same, because when I take my antipsychotic, I actually need it. So,
Also,
anyway,
no spoilers for what Anna ends up being, towards the end of this episode. But the fact that she ends up in a deacon's family as the daughter of like clergy is crazy.
It's because they prayed. They prayed for times like this. Anyway, so they go to Anna's parents' house, to the Milton residence, and they knock on the door, and no one answers. And they're like, okay. Sam's like, well, maybe, or Dean's like, well, maybe they're out. And Sam's like, well, there's 2 cars in the driveway. So I don't know if they are. And then I was like, well, maybe they're out on a walk. Girl, this is Supernatural.
I know. They're always like,
they're not out on a walk.
Oh, they're clearly home and they're not answering. Anyway, we're breaking in. And you're like,
yeah. So Dean opens the door and is like, hey, we're with the sheriff's office. Like, they look around. Basically, they have a living room that's like right off of the foyer. And they're like, they're there. Both of their necks are slit. They're on the ground dead. Sam walks over and they're both like, oh my God. Like, oh no, this is not good. Sam leans down, puts his fingers in, like, the blood and in, like, a substance on the ground, sniffs it, and is like, oh my God, like, this is a lot of sulfur. Whatever, and I think he says, like, whatever the deal with her is, like, they want her, and they are not screwing around, or, like, they are not messing around with her. And Dean's like, yeah, they are not. So they start looking around the house, trying to figure out, like, if there's any clues as to where Anna would have gone. And Sam looks at one of the pictures, and he's like, hey, do you still have Anna's sketchbook? And Dean's like, yeah, girl, I do. And they look and find that drawing of that stained glass window is the same as that of the church that her father was the deacon at. And Sam's like, yeah, like, it makes sense if you're deeply religious and scared and all this crazy shit is happening and you think demons are following you, where would you go to feel the most safe? So then it cuts to them at #church. So the brothers show up at the church and they're like, hello? Anna? Hey, girl. And we hear the sound of, like, a woman crying and, like, having an issue. And Sam has his gun raised, and then he, like, kind of puts it down, and he's like, Anna, we're here to help. My name's Sam. This is my brother, Dean. We know what you're going through, and, like, we want to help make it better. And she's like, not Sam Winchester. And he's like, yeah, actually, it is Sam Winchester. And so she walks out from, like, behind, like, I don't know, like, a piece of art. This is a very decorated church.
Yeah, and, like, I don't know,
like, there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
But she walks out from basically behind, like, there's, like, a huge marble statue of the Virgin Mary. There's, like, all these tapestries and, like, random freestanding stained glass.
Yeah,
but
it's shout out to Catholicism, I guess.
But she walks out and is like, you're the Winchesters. I hear them talking about you. And they're like, oh, who's them? And she's like, the angels. I can hear them. And Dean, they talk about you all the time.
I think on Angel Radio, they're always like, oh my God, Castiel, stop talking about him. Like, they're all really annoyed with how much he's talked about. He's like, yeah. And, like, he's like this, whatever. And they're like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. But she's like, yeah, the angels, they talk about you. And she looks at Sam and she goes, and a lot of them don't like you. And they're like, oh my gosh, like, you can talk to angels. Like, when did that start? And Dean's kind of like, she's clearly, like, super obsessed with Dean. Like, she's looking at him like he hung the sun and the stars. But she's like, oh my gosh, like, that's crazy. But he's like, so, like, when did you start?
Wait, that is a part of my reason why I think think it was Castiel talking about it, because, like, normally it would just be the angels being like, oh my god, this Dean guy, like, he's so important to our plan, whatever. But like, why would she, like, she sees him, whatever, and she's like, oh, like, he seems like such a cool guy, whatever. I'm like, that must be because Cass is talking about him, isn't it? Who couldn't?
There's also more evidence that points to that in what I'm about to say. But they ask her, they're like, well, when did you start being able to hear angels? And she's like, I remember the exact date. It was September 18th, which we know is when Dean got dragged out of hell. And she's like, the first words I heard were Dean Winchester is saved, which that was Castiel. Like, he was the bitch reporting on that.
Castiel pulled this bitch out of hell and then went on angeltwitter.com and was like, I saved him, guys. Me and the bestie.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
literally. Like, I'm also like, what is angel radio? Like, do they have in the Avengers, in the first Avengers movie, when they clearly don't have earpieces and they're all like talking to each other, and like Chris Evans keeps putting his hand up to his ear like he has an earpiece.
Like, and she's like, and this is actually the first place where you have Dean make the angel radio joke. Here's the thing about Anna moving forward. Everything that happens with her is foreshadowing to shit that happens with Cass later. I want you to keep that in mind. All this shit happen, like conversations, things discussed, all like whatever. And the angel radio thing is really big, like whatever. But like, okay, sorry, I'm feeling a little crazy. I'm feeling a little nuts. But like, I just like Castiel. I know that it was like, it's all part of the big plan and that's why he's got to pull him out. But Cass being like, he is risen, and it being such a big thing that like she suddenly can hear angel radio and all this kind of stuff, whatever. I'm just like, that's so crazy. That's so insane. Much to think about.
Literally. No, so true. I agree 100%. So they're having this conversation with Anna. And who, like, storms in? But Ruby. And she's like, we gotta get the fuck out of here, guys. We gotta fucking go. Get the girl. We gotta leave. And Dean's like, oh, how'd you find us? Did you follow us here? How do we know that you're not the demon chasing Anna, bitch? And Sam is like, whoa, like, what's going on? What are you talking about? So Dean and Ruby start kind of butting heads. And at this point, I'm like, oh my god, this is getting fucking old. Like, you guys need to stop this. But they start kind of butting heads. And then Ruby's like, you know what, Dean? It's too late. He's here.
The reason that she says that is because the marble statue of the Virgin Mary starts weeping blood, which is a hilarious moment in Supernatural. Also, great Derry Girls reference, if you know what I'm talking about. The episode of Derry Girls where they all think that the Virgin Mary statue started crying and a miracle happened, when really it was just a dog that was peeing from above the statue. That's what I was thinking about.
Stop. It's literally that.
You know what? Supernatural would have ended in like 2 seasons if the Derry Girls had been there. Just saying.
The other thing that's funny too is like Ruby walks in and Anna starts screaming because she's like, what is wrong with her face? Because Anna can like see demons. So she's like, what the fuck? But they're like, it's okay. She's with us. And Dean's like, oh, is she? Sam? But so Ruby's like, okay, it's too late. He's here. And Sam's like, who's he? And I don't think that anyone like says who he is yet, but like the door slams open. They try to like, Sam ushers Ruby like back into, or not Ruby, oh my god. Sam ushers Anna back into a room and like locks the door, and him and Dean and Ruby are preparing to fight, and Ruby's like, girl, this is fucking stupid. We are screwed. And the door swings open and it's like there's all this wind and stuff, and then in walks just some white guy. I said in my notes when I was watching, I was like, I hate when Supernatural psychs up some character and then it's just some white guy. Not that I'm like, oh, if he was like a different race it'd be better or anything, but it's like it's always the most generic white guy that they get to play like a crazy villain, and they're like, oh my god, we're all so scared of him. I'm like, dude, he's a pediatrician. I think this guy makes a joke about like possessing a pediatrician.
Because at one point
like,
he's
oh
like,
my God,
he's like,
boring.
oh, like, Dean, you don't recognize me because I'm possessing a pediatrician right now.
Yeah. But anyway, so this guy starts beating the shit out of them. He's clearly like really, really powerful. Ruby runs to the back and like takes Anna to safety, even though Anna's like the whole time like, girl, you are scaring me because you're a demon. And she's like, tough, we gotta go. Meanwhile, Sam and Dean are getting their asses beat. Sam stabs Alistair with the demon killing knife, and he's like, oh, that's so cute. You thought that was gonna hurt me? You thought that was gonna stop me? That's lame. And the other thing too, Ruby had kind of told Sam, she was like, you need to use your special powers to like exorcise him. And he's like, I don't know if I'm gonna do that. But
he had said he wasn't gonna use his powers anymore, so that is kind of a contentious thing between the two of them.
Yeah. But this guy, he takes the knife and he like throws it away. And they're like, oh, he like is beating the shit out of Sam. Then he starts fighting. Oh, and then Sam also tries to use like his powers. And he's like, I'm sorry, Sam. You can't get my ass with that. I'm immune to that right now. Loser. His eyes also flash white. So we know that's like he's a powerful demon. He starts fighting Dean then and is like, oh, you don't recognize me, Dean? Come on, you don't know who I am? After all the time we spent together, I guess you wouldn't recognize me because I'm wearing a pediatrician right now, so. Aw. Anyway. Sam and Dean then, like, they escape. They jump out of a second-story window and, like, fly to the ground.
Much to unpack there. It's a shot that people think about a lot, though, because they jump through the stained glass window, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I thought the stained glass window was bigger, and maybe it's just because they're two large men, but them jumping through it, I was like, that's kind of a small window, honestly. The other thing that's revealed is that when this guy is asking Dean, like, oh my god, you don't recognize me, Dean's like, Alistair. And I'm like, oh my god, boring ass name. Okay, Alistair. I'm so scared of Alistair.
I forgot about Alistair as a character. I'm going to be so real.
I think he's only in this one episode.
Really? I don't remember.
I feel like he is. Anyway. But the other question I had too is I know like Sam's powers weren't working. Why didn't they try to like read out the exorcism that they know? Like,
because
they're stupid.
Because they're dumb.
They're not smart. We cut the boys. They're back at their hotel. And this is like a very gritty scene of them stitching up their wounds. And it's very like not sexy. Because I feel like we've seen scenes like when Dean was originally dead, like in the Mystery Spot episode, like when Sam was like on his rampage, like we saw scenes of him stitching himself up, but it was like, oh, a shirtless scene, he's sexy. Like this is a very not sexy scene. And like Dean's like washing blood out of his mouth and like spitting it out into the sink. Sam is giving himself stitches on his arm and is like grunting and groaning the whole time, and not in a sexy way, just like they're both clearly like pretty fucked up. So Dean is like, listen, like, what do we do? And Sam's like, well, Ruby got Anna out, so I'm sure they're safe, so we just need to wait for her to contact us. And he's like, oh, how is she going to contact us? What are you talking about? Like, Sam, this is ridiculous. She might have taken her and given her to them anyway. And Sam's like, no, she wouldn't do that. I trust, and she probably hasn't contacted us because we're probably being watched. That's probably why he let us go. Why Alistair let us go is because they know that we'd go straight to them and they want to follow us. And Dean's like, okay. So, but we're trusting Ruby again. So, like, I'm sorry. I need to know, like, why you trust her.
He says, he's like, at this point, he's like, I don't have a problem with it at this point. I'm literally just curious. I need to understand.
And Sam's like, okay, Ruby saved my life. And then we get a flashback 6 months ago. Sam is in this fight with these two, what you assume to be demons. And he's just getting his ass totally beat.
Well, he walks into his dark hotel room drunk off his ass and looking like shit. And then these two demons like jump out and start attacking him.
Yeah, right. So Sam is getting his ass beat by these demons. And this one demon, this woman is like, oh, long time no see, Sam. And he's like, oh my god, Ruby? And she's like, yeah. Well, I crawled my way out of hell. I had to beg and tell Lilith how sorry I was. And then she let me go with one condition. That I kill you. And she grabs her knife from him and she goes to stab him. But then she turns and stabs the other demon who's with them. So she saved Sam. And Sam's like, oh my god, girl. What? She's like, yeah, I'm like here to help. So they get in the car. I don't know why they get in the car together, but they're in the car. And she's like, you know what sounds really good? French fries. We should get French fries. And Sam's like not talking to her. And she's like, well, thank you would be nice. And he's like, what do I have to thank you for? And she's like, well, first of all, I saved your life. Second of all, I was like, and she's also in a different body right now than the one that we had just seen her in. Like the one that she's currently in. She's in a different body.
Yeah, so this would be, she's like, this would technically be the second body that she's had before she's in Genevieve's body.
Yeah. But she's like, you know, like, Sam, you don't know like what I went through in hell. It fucking sucked. Lilith was like torturing me and like I had to beg so I could get back here to you, so I could help you.
She's like, I had to do things to prove my loyalty that were pretty bad.
Yeah. And Sam's like, okay, well, can you help me get Dean out? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything I can do with that. But, and he goes, okay, well, I don't want your help.
She says, she says, I don't know anything powerful enough to do that. Shout out to Castiel. Anyway.
But she's like, yeah. And he's like, I don't want your help. Sorry, bye. And she's like, wait. Sam, after everything I've done. And he's like, you know what? Who are you possessing this time? And she's like, what? You never asked me that before. He's like, so who is it? And she's like, she's a secretary. I don't know. Not important. And Sam's like, you're like ruining her life. Like you've taken her body. You've kidnapped her. Like this is fucked up. I'm not going to talk to you. So leave that body now. And then she does.
He said, he says, leave that body or else I'll just fucking kill you.
Yeah, he's like, I'll send you back to hell.
Like, he's not going to kill the thing. And she's like, fuck, fine.
Yeah, so she leaves. So then that girl, I assume, it doesn't show it, but my assumption is that Sam like takes her home. We cut to this woman who is like in oh my god, I almost said a hotel room. Not a hotel room, in a hospital bed. And the doctor's like, okay, like she's clear. It says Jane Doe, so they don't know who she is, but she's in a coma. And the doctor's like, okay, like it's time to pull the plug. Like she's not getting better. And we cut and we realize that woman is the Ruby that we currently know. So she flatlines, and then they go to pull like the intubator out, and then she sits up and starts breathing and is like, oh my god, what does the girl have to do to get some fries around here?
Shout out to her dedication to fries. And you're like, surprise, it's Genevieve.
She would have loved being on Tumblr in 2014.
Yeah, especially with all the gifts of Sam.
So Sam is, okay, first of all, I don't know where the hell Sam is living, but he's basically living in a house that is completely reclaimed by nature. Like,
he's going through it.
It's
like
moldy, it's disgusting. But he's sitting at his table and he's like brooding, drinking, getting fucked up, middle of the day. And here's a knock at the door. And he comes to the door and he finds Ruby in this new body standing there. And she's holding like a form that says like, oh, this girl was brain dead. And she's like, yeah, I recycled this time I left. She was literally completely brain dead. Her soul had passed on. There's no extra passengers on here. I recycled. Al Gore would be proud of me. She literally says Al Gore would be proud.
The Al Gore joke is crazy.
She's like, she sees Sam and she goes, Democrat. She's like, yeah, like this is ethically sourced body. Does that make you feel better? And Sam is like, okay, like, but that's great, but like, why'd you come here? And she's like, because I can give you something you want. And he's like, no, I don't want that. Like, I don't want anything you have to give me other than my brother back. And she's like, well, I can give you something, maybe the second best thing. And Sam's like, okay, I'm listening. And she's like, you are powerful enough to kill Lilith. You just need to learn how. We tried a half-baked attempt last time and we got fucked over. But I think we can actually do it, like, if you train, and I will train you, but you have to get sober. Because Sam is clearly, like, off the deep end. And Sam, like, looks at her and is kind of like, yeah, like, okay, like, he agrees. Then we cut to Dean and him talking. And Dean's like, well, okay, so, like, you guys learned to use your powers. Like, what did she teach you? Like, what did you learn? And Sam's like, well, the first thing I learned is that I'm a crappy student.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with that.
So we're at 6 months ago, again. Sam and Ruby have this demon tied to a chair. It's just a guy who's possessed by a demon. And Sam is, like, trying really hard to use his powers to exorcise this guy. And he keeps, like, not being able to do it. And it's, like, it kind of gets there. But then, like, his demon smoke comes back into his body. And the dude starts laughing at Sam. He's like, you fucking loser. And then Ruby runs up and is like, it's not funny. And slits the guy's throat. Which is crazy because I'm like, they really...
With the demon knife.
Yeah, with the demon knife. So they kill the demon, but I'm also like, you guys could have just, like, exercised. Because now you just killed that guy.
Literally!
Like, this is the part of the show where they start forgetting that a big thing was that they didn't want to kill people who are possessed by demons. Like, they kind of forgot about that. But anyway, so but we cut. They're back at Sam's, like, shitty house. And she's like, Sam, it'll get better with time. And he's like, no, like, what do I need to do? Do I need to keep practicing? Do I need to do all that? And she's like, no, I'm not talking about that. Clearly, like, your grief is clouding your judgment and clouding everything you do. Like, you need to focus on this. And he goes, I don't want to talk about that with you. And Sam's being kind of a dick.
And here's the thing.
And I know
here's the thing. I said this. I was like, Sam Winchester failing at his Sith training. You're never going to be Ventress. You're never going to be Asajj Ventress. Anyways.
But he's clearly, like, I don't want to talk about this with you. Like, what do you know about losing people? And she's like, I was a human once. And I remember what it feels like to lose people. I just want you to know that, like, people love you and people are here for you. So, like, when you are ready to talk about this, like, you have people who will. Like, you don't need to be fighting through this alone, and you need to, like, realize, which is crazy because this basic exact same conversation happens in the second episode with two different characters.
Much to think about.
Much to think about. But they're kind of standing there, they're kind of having vibes, and then she, like, leans in and kisses him, and he's like, whoa, what the hell? What are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Is it... she says, like, I think she says... is it
the body? Like, and he's like...
She's like, no. Is it the body? Because, like, it's so, like, soft and, like, warm. And
I was like, girl.
It's just a body. And he's like, no, I don't want to. It's not because... And he's not saying, like, no, like, in a, like, oh, she's violating consent way. So don't take it in that way. Yeah. It's not quite what's happening.
He's very just like, oh, you are a demon, and it is freaking me out a little bit.
But she's like, what? Isn't it because you're scared to go there with a demon? Because it's wrong? And then Sam is like, oh. And then suddenly, like, they start going at it, ham. And this is one of those things where I'm like,
and...
No, they are, like, going crazy. Like, he's grabbing her hair, and, like, they're, like, fighting clear. Like, it's like they are fucking hardcore.
And you know what? Now it makes a lot of sense, considering that the actors got married.
They're now married.
They met.
And I did write down in my notes, God, she's so sexy.
She is. Like, I would.
She's so fine.
Because I definitely was a Sam girl, and then this happened, and I was like, well...
No, it's kind of like, I'm gonna say this, and this is like something I don't think I ever really say about a straight sex scene, but I'm like, it was like hot.
Yeah,
like, it was crazy.
It served cunt, and there are bad sex scenes in Supernatural. This is not one of them.
Oh yeah, we're about to see one.
Yeah, well, here's the thing,
not this one.
And narratively, that is important. That this one is a good sex scene, and the other one is not.
Yeah, but it's funny because they just are fucking crazy style. And I remember watching this episode and being like, holy shit. And I remembered that, like, the framing of this is that he's, like, telling the story to Dean. And I was like, I wonder if he's actually telling Dean this part, like, kind of as a joke. And then it cuts to Dean staring at him and being like, dude, that is too much information.
Like, Sam, what
so
did
like,
you say?
He is telling him. That's so jacked up.
No wonder these brothers are so fucked up and weird.
No, literally. I'm like, girl, y'all need to shut the hell up.
Girl, like...
So then... So Dean's like, okay, so all I'm hearing right now is that she basically just she manipulated you and then trained you and then banged you. I'm not really hearing a lot about saving your life. And Sam's like, okay, well... That's great, because there's more to the hashtag story, babes. Buckle up. Buckle up, babes. I'm ready to tell the rest. So Sam is like...
This is literally Sam going well, who the fuck did I marry? Part 42.
So Sam is like... I started finding these, like, omens. Like, I started looking for Lilith. And I realized that she was in town. And then we cut. And it's Sam, like, getting ready and geared up to go. And Ruby's like, we can't. You're not ready to fight her. And he's like, it's now or never. And she's like, Sam, this is, like, you will not win against her right now. You will die. This is suicide. You don't plan on making it out. You want to die fighting Lilith because you don't want to have to live without your brother. And Sam, like, grabs her and pins her up against a wall with the knife to her throat. And first of all, I was like, I'm sorry, Ruby. I would treat you better.
No, literally.
I'm so sorry.
Like,
I'm so sorry that this ugly man is doing this to you.
Like, she has put in the work and the hours, and you are being a bitch and a half.
Mm-hmm. But she is basically like, dude, like, Sam, don't do this. Because I don't want you to die. And, like, if you die, there's nothing we can do to stop Lilith. And Sam's like, well...
She also makes it clear, she's like, you're the only person who can do this with the proper training because you are powerful enough. So, like, don't fuck this up for the rest of us.
Yeah, basically. And Sam is like, well, whatever the fuck. And he leaves to go find Lilith. He is, like... looking at this house, and he sees, like, a little girl sitting at a table in front of a bunch of, like, treats. He sees her from the back, from outside of the house. So he goes in, sneaks into the house, and is, like, walking around. He has the demon knife, and he's walking up to where this little girl is. He comes up behind her, and she turns around, and she's sobbing, and she's this little girl, and she's like, I just want to get out of here. So Sam is, like, lowers the knife. He's like, oh, fuck, like, this is not Lilith. And then he gets jumped by these two guys. And one of them is like, oh, Lilith says she's sorry that she couldn't make it. She sends her regards. So it's clear he has walked into a trap.
Yeah, because Lilith has tended to choose the vessel of a small girl often, so he got tricked.
Yeah. So Sam is, like, getting his shit rocked, and this little girl is there, and she's like, oh my god, this is so messed up. And Sam is like, it's like, oh no, it's over. And then one of the demons collapses, and he turns around, and Sam realizes that Ruby is there, and she's there to save him. And they start fighting, and she's like, get the girl and get out. And Sam, like, runs and grabs this little girl and books it. And we see Ruby fighting this guy, this demon. And he's like, oh, Ruby, it's crazy that you would show your face around here. You know, you've been very bad. I cannot wait to bring you back to hell. Lilith is going to be so excited to see you. So basically implying, like, if she goes back to hell, like, she's fucked. But he kind of wrestles the blade out of her hand. He's a really big guy. Wrestles the blade out of her hand. He pins her up against a wall and is, like, choking her, holding her, like, a foot above the ground. And then Sam runs up and starts exercising him with his powers, and it works. And I'm like, wait, Subi has kind of got me, because like he just was only able to use his powers to save her. Wait.
And this is where we have to remember the Subi Castiel parallels, because you have to pay attention to the little details of Subi, because then when you see it with Castiel, it's all there. It's all there. The pieces are connected, okay? You have to pay attention to Subi. It's very important.
This is your homework. Castiel Nation, this is your homework.
You have to get through the straight people to understand and have the fundamentals and the foundation, okay?
Yeah. And honestly, these straight people have some spice. Not gonna lie. Where's the spice? Is Supernatural spicy?
Yes, unfortunately.
Anyway. Yeah. So basically, he's like, oh my god, like, you came back for me. It cuts back. We're in current day. Dean is like, okay, I kind of understand why she did that. And like, I guess I'm like, that's, I don't know. I just wasn't expecting that. And Sam's like, well, she told me what I needed to hear, that I needed to go on. She told me what you would have told me, and I needed that. And I'm like, that was a weird thing to say about a girl you're making out with about your brother.
Yeah.
Like, don't give the Wincesties this win.
Lord God, please.
But he's like, yeah, like she said what you would have said to me, and that really like helped me get out of that slump. So like, can we all work together now? And Dean's like,
I think the narrative purpose of that, it was them saying like that is what would make Dean trust her. Of like she cares about Sam in the same way that I do, not just uses him as a tool.
Yeah, basically. So then they're having this sort of heart-to-heart, and there's a knock on the door, and a woman says, housekeeping. And Dean's like, not now. And she knocks again, and she's like, I have clean towels. And he's like, oh my god. So he goes up to answer the door, and he opens the door, and this maid walks in, and she puts the towels in Dean's hands, and then like walks into the room. And he's like, why didn't you just like leave these on the porch, or leave these like out front of the door? And she goes, okay, listen, there are demons up and down the block. You guys need to go out the bathroom window, and gives like this elaborate escape plan basically. And she's like, and here's where we're waiting. And she's like, demons are closing in, so we need to go now. And Sam was like, wait, Ruby? And she's like, oh yeah, yes, I know, I'm possessing the maid, sorry. And Sam's like, no, like where's your vessel, like your like, where's your body? And she's like, well, currently decomposing on the ground with Anna, so in this cabin, so I do like need to get back there, so if you guys could meet me there, that would be awesome. So they're like, oh my god, like, but she's like, yeah, sneak out the bathroom window. So they're like, okay, cool. Which I wrote down, so demons can possess dead bodies. Okay. Because I think the whole thing with Ruby was that it was like with the body that she currently has is that she was close to death, but she wasn't fully dead. But like, I guess it was like in the split second before her body was dead, but her soul had left her body.
Well, also like, the whole thing of like, remember when Dean was in a coma and like his soul was kind of just walking around? And
I guess that makes sense.
Like, there's that too. Or like and there's also the implication that like if they're brain dead, like their soul is gone, but their body is still alive. So a demon can technically use it because their body is still alive. However, they have also said that demons, like, they'll possess somebody and they're like, if I go out of this body now, this person is dead anyway. So it's like, I think they just don't possess dead bodies because most of them have started rotting by then. But like, I guess that makes sense. They can possess a dead body. I think it's just most of the time that like they die in the process of being possessed. So I
guess that's true. I don't know. Yeah. I just never really thought about it, about like the possession lore until now. And now I'm
it's
like,
not consistent.
That does not make sense.
So it doesn't really matter.
What else is new? Supernatural, not consistent? No.
Yeah.
So we cut. Sam and Dean have arrived at this cabin, and they're there with they're there and they show up and Anna is there and Ruby is there. And they're like, oh my gosh, like, we're so happy that you're okay. Like, thanks so much for, like, getting Anna out. And Anna's like, oh my gosh, like, it's okay. You guys were right. Ruby's not like other demons. And, like, she looks at Ruby and I'm like, oh, she low-key wants her. Wait.
Okay, because saying, I was like,
Anna Ruby
yes,
is kind of that.
Wait.
That's kind of everything.
Wait, pause. We need to go on AO3 and see if that's a thing. Hold on. I'm plugging into the mainframe. Ruby/Anna Supernatural. I'm searching. Oh! 309 works in Anna Milton/Ruby. Shout out to the Fury Warriors.
They are doing God's work. I feel like there should be more, though. Can we get on that? Guys, can we get on that?
Hey, listen. The people who did Garth/Benny, they won. So it's possible. You know? Me when Supernatural is over. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Okay, this one?
Anyway, so...
I'm just looking... Wow. That's a lot. I'm gonna have to read some of these. Like, damn. Anyway.
So, Anna's like, okay. Like, they're like, okay, awesome. Like, we're so happy you're alive. They kind of talk a little bit, and Anna's like, okay, well, now that we have a minute, is it okay if we make a quick call? I want to, like, let my parents know I'm okay. And Sam and Dean and Ruby all kind of look at each other like, oh no. So, Sam was like, listen, your parents, they are, and she's like, no. Oh my God, no. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And she starts crying and, like, screaming. She's like, why is this happening to me? Like, what the fuck? Like, my life is falling apart. Why is this happening? And then they sent a presents. And they're like, oh my God, Alistair and, like, the demons are coming. And Ruby's like, guys, okay, where's the knife? And Sam's like, Dean's like, we don't have it. And she's like, what do you mean? Oh, that's convenient. Peachy timing. Great job, boys. And Dean's like, well, don't blame me. Blame your boyfriend over here. Whatever. And Sam's like, oh, well, thanks, dude. Throw me under the freaking bus while you're at it. But, they're, like, freaking out because they think Alistair's gonna show up. But then they're like, wait. Oh, and they knew someone was gonna show up because Anna had a vision. So they were like, oh my God.
Did she have a vision, or is she like, oh, I'm hearing something on Angel Radio?
I think she was hearing something. I don't know. Yeah, I think she was, like, hearing voices, and she was like, oh my God, they're coming. And they're like, oh my God, it's Alistair. Turns out, it's not Alistair. Who is it? Cass and Uriel. They walk in.
And they're like... And I'll just say, because this is also in some fuck-ass barn, isn't it? Is everything with this goddamn character happens in some fuck-ass barn. They walk in and they bang open the doors, and I'm like, oh, so Cass just enters every room like this, at least for the first few seasons. And the way that man walks in and I fucks Dean every goddamn time he walks into a scene in these two episodes, absolutely bonkers. Ruby and Sam, they are not I fucking each other in the same way. I just want it to be clear, okay?
So they walk in, these two angels walk in, and Dean's like, oh, are you guys here to help us with our demon problem? And Uriel's like, oh, yeah, I guess we are. And then throws Ruby, like, up against a window, and, like, it breaks, and, like, she falls to the ground. And Sam is, like, kind of preparing to fight, and they're like, oh, like, Dean's like, oh, are you here for Anna? And they're like, yeah, you need to, like, hand her over. And they're like, oh, are you gonna protect her? And Cass is like, well, we are here for Anna. She has to die. And that's the end of the episode. That's the end of the episode. To be continued. To be continued.
It's so crazy. And also, as he's saying this, because the first shot of it goes, like, Dean, and then it goes to Castiel, and then Dean's reaction to Castiel, and then everybody else's faces. Like, it's all about them. And whenever Castiel says a line, and this will be into the next episode as well, whenever Castiel says a line, he's looking at Dean whenever he says it very specifically, he's looking at Dean for his approval. And also, like, I feel like these 2 episodes are so, like, indicative of this is a part of Castiel coming into his own. Especially, this is a point where, like, Anna's storyline it's foreshadowing for Castiel. It's literally foreshadowing for Castiel down to several moments. And it's Lucy, like, Cass starting to realize what he has given up or whatever. Like, this is the beginning of it. I know I've said it before, like, this is the literal beginning of it, and you see it in his face. You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill myself. Like, it's so... Anyways, should we get into the next episode? Because it goes right into it. The next episode, where it literally picks up exactly where we left off. The next episode is called... This one is written by Eric Kripke and Trevor Sands. Just putting that out there. This one is called Heaven and Hell. Let's unpack. Let's keep that in our brains. Okay. So we open back on the same conversation. Castiel and Uriel are like, they want them to hand over Anna, and we're here for Anna. She has to die, the whole thing. And in this conversation, Uriel says that Anna is not as innocent as she appears. Because they're like, what are you going to do with this innocent girl? And they're like, you sure about that? And then Dean and Sam and Ruby are all like, fuck does that mean? They are like, what does that mean? And then the angels are like, fuck this. And by the angels, I mean mostly Uriel. They start attacking. But suddenly, in the middle of the fight... basically this light, like, they literally just get, like, sucked away into nothingness. It looks so weird. And the angels disappear, and they're like, what the fuck? And they go to the room where Anna was hiding, and they find that she has used her blood to draw these angel banishing sigils. And they're like, what is this? Like, how did you know to do this? And she's like, I don't know. Like... she's like, I don't know. It just, like, came to me. And they're like, okay, so she definitely is not, like, what she seems. So they do what any normal person would do, and they take refuge at Bobby's place. But Bobby is not there. They make dumbass jokes about how he is away on a job in the Caribbean the whole time. Also, I can tell this is an Eric Kripke written episode because they have such weird dialogue. Like, they're saying all kinds of cliches and catchphrases that, like, no normal person would ever say in their entire life the whole time, to the point where Claire walked up while I was watching and was like, who wrote this? Like, and I was like, this is an Eric Kripke episode, you can tell. This is one of those times where you're like, is Dean a caricature or a person? Who can say? So, if you remember, Bobby has this fucking panic room downstairs that is, like, impervious to angels and demons and whatever. And they put Anna...
I love the panic room. It's like, what the because it also has this, like, it's got, like, all this crazy bullshit going on. And it's like, and Bobby's like, I had a free weekend to do it. Girl, what the hell are you talking about? His mind.
So, Bobby is not there. So, they're using his panic room. And Ruby, at this point, Ruby is standing right outside because she can't go in it. And they're like, yeah, and there's anti-demon stuff. And she's like, that's kind of racist. And you're like...
She says, that's kind of racist, which I think is racist. And Dean says, oh, write your congressman.
I was like, you know what, Dean, that kind of served. So they are like, they're like, okay, Anna, like, just stay in there. And then Sam's like, okay, Ruby, like, just keep an eye on her. Like, we don't know what's going on with her.
This is also so funny because this is where Dean and Ruby are, like, low-key starting to be friends. And it's like when they both, like, say something funny to, like, the part where he's like, all right, your congressman, whatever, like, clearly to be funny. And, like, they both kind of laugh and then they look at each other like, what the fuck? Like, why are we friends?
Are we besties? Like, hold on.
They're like, ew, like, they're both like, ew, fuck off. But, like, are we friends?
And the thing is also that the revelation later in the episode is that they are not that different from each other for reasons that we will learn very soon. About what occurs in hell. And so, like, them being besties kind of makes sense.
Oh, yeah. And another thing that kind of happens too, like, in the last episode is when they team back up with Ruby and Anna, Dean's like, so, thank you for, well, he doesn't say thank you, but he's like, so, I guess I have to thank you for delivering Sam and, like, taking care of, basically, he's like, thanks for taking care of him while I was gone.
Fucking kill himself.
So, yeah, and she's like, okay. And he's like, are we done now? That was awkward. I don't want to have this conversation with you ever again. And she's like, yep, I'm good. We're good, buddy.
It's so funny.
So they're like in their like tentative friends era, which is like,
it's very
so
funny.
good.
Didn't we make a joke about Doobie at one point?
Doobie is kind of sick and twisted.
So Sam, I don't know how he discovers this. I think Sam has been doing research into Anna, and he's like, okay, so when Anna was a child, she, like, her history of psychosis actually started early when she was a kid, and when she was a kid, she would have these, like, attacks, whatever, and she would say that she had another father who was mad at her, and they never really knew what that was, and Anna doesn't remember this, and so we have the return of a very fun Supernatural Glupshido. So Dean is like, all right, who could we get to, like, try and figure this out? And they're like, I know, our psychic friend Pamela, who showed up in Lazarus Rising, or in Lazarus Rising, I think so, or before that, who, if you remember, is the psychic who got her eyes blown out by Castiel.
Yeah, she was in Lazarus. Yeah, she was in Lazarus Rising when they found out what Cass's name was.
Somehow she's still alive. She's just blind now, and so they now have.
That's what they had said in that episode, though. Was that it was like, oh, she went to the hospital.
Yeah.
And
usually that sort of angel thing just kills a bitch, but not Pamela. She's built different. So she's blind now.
Not Pamela. That's my fucking girl. But then it's like, you're like, that's my girl.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, what if I got rid of all my goodwill, of your goodwill towards me
She's
really
no
fast?
longer my best friend. So Pamela shows up. They're, like, guiding her down the stairs, I guess, into the panic room area to see Anna, and to help her kind of unlock her memories. And at this point, she's, like, looking up at Sam. Obviously, she can't see him, but she's like, I can sense that there's a demon here, and I can sense that girl Anna, and I can sense that you have been staring at my rack this whole time. Or she says something like that, but then she also, like, slaps him on the ass and is like, and you're like,
she says this is Sam Winchester. I'd recognize those cheeks anywhere. You can bounce a nickel off of those.
And she's like, slaps his ass, and you're like,
then,
ma'am.
And that's when she's like, and I can tell you've been looking at my rack, so I'm less blind than many people who have their eyesight, you fucker.
To be fair, I think he'd be looking at anyone's rack because he's 7 feet tall and is looking down at you. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, this goes in the long running trope in this show of Sam gets sexually harassed by women constantly in a very uncomfortable way. And it's mostly Sam. Dean gets sexually harassed by men. Yeah. Sam gets sexually harassed by women, and it's gross. Like,
there's a lot of, I think it's also like this show is just from an era where there was so much like, haha, isn't it funny when a man gets harassed by a woman? We're so used to doing it the other way around. And it's like, wow, so that actually does happen in real life and is, bad. Both ways, it's bad. It's bad anyway, actually.
Yeah. But then Pamela kind of turns to Anna and is like, like, clearly she detects something about her but isn't saying. She's like, okay, like, let's figure this out. So we cut to she's putting Anna into, like, a hypnosis state, and so she's, like, counting down. She's like, okay, like, you're gonna talk to me, like, in this state, whatever. And, like, Ruby is standing outside the door because she can't go inside the thing, and Anna's laying on this couch, whatever, and she goes into hypnosis, and she starts asking her, and she's like, okay, try to remember when you were younger, what were you talking about, who's your real father? And she's like, oh, like, blah, blah, Milton is my dad. And she's like, okay, who's your real father, whatever. And she starts to, like, freak out and, like, panic and, like, scream and cry and be like, my father's angry at me, blah, blah, blah. And they're all like, what the fuck? And then she starts to, like, convulse, and then, like, the lights start to, like, flicker and, like, short out, whatever, much like when an angel shows up. And she's freaking out, and then Pamela is, like, counting down to, like, bring her back from the hypnosis, and she stops, and everything stops, and she wakes up, and she, like, stands up because she's freaked out, and then she's like, I remember what I am. And they're all like, girl, what? And she's like, so here's the thing. I was an angel. I was an angel. Why did I say it like that?
That was such a reveal, though. I'm like, okay.
Like, she's like,
also,
So she's like,
it's just, she's also kind of low-key starts acting like a completely different person.
She's like
it's
before
so
she was
crazy.
Like, she was like scared.
Like, thank you.
She's like, oh, I'm back. And she's like, so I was an angel. I chose to fall to earth and become human, and I relinquished my grace. And the reason that heaven wants me out is because I like disobeyed. In order to become a human, like I disobeyed, and you can't disobey, whatever. And they're all like, girl, what? I don't know. Is it at this point that they explain why the demons want her? Oh, I think at this point then they're like, oh, that's why the demons. Yeah,
I
like
think
that's
it
why
is.
the demons want her, because she has access to angel radio. Basically, they can, and they're like, oh, so they would have somebody like they could listen in on the enemy. They have somebody that they can torture and hurt because she's a human now in a way that they couldn't with an angel.
Yeah, I think this is the part where Ruby says, "Sister, you're the Stanley
Yeah.
Cup," which is so funny because she's like, "You're the Stanley Cup," and like everyone's gonna be looking for you. And I'm like, what a weird analogy to use the Stanley Cup of all things.
You can tell they film in Canada.
It's so funny. Also, yeah, but that's okay. That's so true. Also, the Stanley Cup, that's the only one I'm invested in, and I also, it's so funny. Because I feel like people online are like, oh my god, like the Stanley Cup, we gotta get the Stanley Cup. And I'm like, I don't think you guys are like middle school girls. I don't think you're gonna be winning at hockey anytime. And I'm like, oh, the Stanley Cup, like the drink receptacle. Okay. All right, I'm hip with it.
I think that if Dean had a normal childhood, he would have had an obsession with Stanley Cups. But that's just me. I don't know why I have that feeling.
He would want a Stanley Cup, and then he'd get one, and Sam would be like, dude, you got a Stanley Cup? And he'd be like, what? What, it's not masculine to stay hydrated, Sam?
And then Sam would be like, well, I actually know the studies about how it has lead in it. And maybe that's the way you are, the way you are. We just, when we do a supernatural fan fiction, it's always wild. So, anyway, Anna's like, okay, this is a problem. So we need to go find my grace, because I basically need to become an angel again, or else they're gonna beat my ass. And they're like, okay, like, where is it? And she's like, well, I was falling at thousands of miles an hour. And they were like, oh, you were falling literally. She's like, yeah, what did you think? Like, I was literally falling. And she's like, and it could have fallen anywhere on Earth. And they're like, great. But then Sam, the smart cookie that he is like, wait, did you say that you were falling? And he's like, and you said you were falling, whatever. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, and would it look like anything, whatever? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, maybe like a meteor, because you were falling at thousands of miles per hour. And she's like, oh, yeah. And they're like, okay, great. We can look about when your human vessel was born and fell to Earth and look for any like meteor shower. And they like go from there. Or like when a meteor was seen and that kind of thing. And they find it. They find it in Kentucky, and they do this research, and they're like, okay, so when it fell, where it fell, this oak tree sprung up, and there was a miracle. And they're like, that would make sense, because they're like, she's like, yeah, something like that would probably happen, because grace is just like, it's a little bit of God's power of creation. So like something that's built of creation springing up would make sense. And they're like, okay, we're gonna go find her grace.
I think this is the point too where Dean is like, oh yeah, so you've basically just got to do a divine bong hit.
Yeah, it's so,
and I'm like, divine bong hit is going into my like vocabulary forever. That's too good.
Episode name. So they travel there, and also when they're traveling there, you have Dean and Sam in the front of the car, and then you have Ruby and Anna in the back of the car, and Dean makes this little joke of like, he's like, and he's like, an angel and a demon in my back seat, and he's like, it's like the beginning of a joke, and Ruby's just rolling her eyes, she's like, oh my god. And
there's a part too where he's like, oh, or whatever, like, ha ha ha, it's kind of like, it's funny, whatever. And Sam's like, dude, you're confusing real life with porn again. He had made a reference to it earlier too, where Dean had said some fucked up shit, and he was like, dude, you gotta, he is like, you are porn pilled, like, you need to stop. Have we also gotten to the part yet where they talk about Ruby being afraid of Alistair, where she's like, I don't want to get caught up in this? Because she calls him the Grand Inquisitor downstairs. And I was like,
I literally yelled Quizzy. Well, I don't know at what point she says this, but yeah, she calls Alistair, like, she's like, I don't want to deal with that. I think when they're like, okay, like, we're stuck between the two of them, she's like, I don't want to deal with that shit. And she's like, he's like the Grand Inquisitor downstairs, whatever. And then I yelled at the screen, Quizzy.
Yeah. Yeah, because Anna, basically Anna's like telling them, like, okay, we need to go find my Grace. And the boys are like, okay, that sounds good. And Ruby's like, I don't want to fucking do that. I'm terrified of them. And Sam's like, well, what if, like, the angels? And she's like, no, of Alistair. He's fucked up. He is like the Grand Inquisitor downstairs. He's like crazy and evil. I don't want to fuck with him.
Yeah, and then I was just like, oh my god, Quiznos is here. Alistair versus Quiznos, who would win? So they get to this fuck ass tree and they're like, oh yeah, this definitely has like divine energy. And Anna like goes up to the tree and they're like, Anna, like, what are we supposed to do? And she goes up to the tree and she touches the tree and she like has a moment and then she's like, oh fuck, somebody took it. And they're like, oh my god, we're never gonna find it now. So they go back to Bobby's place and Anna overhears the angels talking and she's like, if she's not handed over to them, Dean will be returned back to hell. Which I'm like, doesn't that mess with their plans? But like, okay.
She says like, she's like, they get back to Bobby's house and they're like talking like, okay, so what the hell do we do? Because the other thing too was that Sam's plan was kind of like, all right, we're gonna protect ourselves from everything. It's gonna be fine. And Dean's like, yeah, when we get Anna's Grace back, she's gonna protect us from everything and we're not gonna have to worry about it. And Ruby's like, you guys are like, so now there's no Grace, so we're like, fucked.
What is your plan?
And then, what's your plan? And then Anna's like, hold on. I'm getting like something. They're repeating a message basically. Like it's almost like a radio station.
And this is significant because earlier there was a point where they're like, are you hearing anything? And she's like, no. And Dean's like, oh fuck, if you're hearing nothing, that's scarier. And now she's hearing something very specific. They're clearly sending her a message.
Yeah. And it says, quote, Dean Winchester gives us Anna by midnight or we hurl him back into damnation. And I'm like, girl, that's me when I lie. Like, y'all are not going to do that.
Yeah, Cass would never let that happen. That's his Pookie Bear.
Yeah. Is this the scene, I think, where they're like, there's two scenes where this happens, and I think one happens earlier. I think one is where they're getting ready to go get Anna's Grace, where Dean and Anna are like sitting outside around the car.
No, I think that's the scene now.
And
I don't know. I mean, the Supernatural Wiki is not helpful.
Your ass needs to start taking notes.
I was, and then I got distracted by the Trump verdict. So
basically,
what happened was they're sitting by the car. Anna and Dean are sitting by one of the cars in like Bobby's like junk yard area, and they start to have a conversation that Anna is like, I know what you did in hell. Because previously, Dean comes over to her and they have like an earnest conversation. And Dean was like, the angels keep saying they have a plan for me. And if you can hear the angel radio, like, what is it? And she's like, hey, I only started hearing that like after. And, like, I wasn't in heaven when they made that thing, so I haven't heard anything. I'm sorry. And he's like, okay, whatever. And then they have this conversation, and she's like, hey, so I've heard some things now.
There's also a scene in that conversation they had before. There's also a moment where Dean's like, I don't understand, like, why would you give up being an angel?
Yeah. Like, this is pretty significant. This is pretty significant. Why isn't
that you completely glazed over because your ass did not take notes?
Okay. Also in this conversation, then Dean is like, hey, like, can I ask you another thing? He's like, why would you give this up? Like, why would you give it up to be a human? Like, being a human sucks, and you're like all powerful, whatever. And she's like,
he says, you guys are powerful and perfect. How many angels has he met? Because I know his ass is not talking about Uriel when he says that.
Interesting. When I watched Lazarus Rising, it had a big impact on me as well. So I understand. And she's like, she looks at him and she's like, yeah, and I have to follow orders, and then I have to do anything. And she's like, and what about all these other wonderful things about like being a human? And like she's talking about like, she says like a couple of things. She's like, yeah, and food. She's like,
Dean is like, well, listen, like all this stuff about like humanity, like pain, and she's like chocolate cake, and he's like, well, guilt, and she's like, sex. And he's like, and he's like, you got me there. And then they look at each other and then they move on.
And they're like, so anyway, at this point, like, and she's like, and she's like, and we just have to like sit there and follow orders from a father and a God who we never see. And Dean's like, he just kind of pauses for a second and he's like, I can relate. And he's like, wait, and he's like, wait, what do you mean you guys have never seen God? And she's like, yeah, like only like 4 of them have ever seen God. And he's like, how are you supposed to, like, what do you mean? Like, how are you supposed to go on? And she's like, we're just supposed to go on faith and then just follow orders. And if we don't, we get killed. And that's exactly what they're going to do to me. And he's just like, damn. And so he's like really relating to her in that moment. And this is another moment. This is another fuck John Winchester moment. And I know Chuck is laughing writing this part, being like, oh my God, he's got daddy issues just like all the angels, just like Anna, just like Castiel later on. Remember, Anna is the foreshadowing for Castiel. Remember, this is very important. Very important. And it's not just implied. It will be discussed later. Like, they had this conversation, and later on they have another conversation where they're in front of the cars again, and Anna kind of turns to him and is like, okay, so I have been hearing some things on the angel radio, and I know what you did in hell. And you can see that he's kind of relieved by this because, like, he had no way to, like, explain this to Sam, and he didn't want to talk about it. So he's like, oh, I can, like, talk to somebody about this. And she's like, and he's like, yeah, and I can never forgive myself. And she's like, it wasn't your fault. Like, you were a victim, and you need to forgive yourself.
Also, keep in mind, we as the viewer, we know because we, like, have seen it, but the viewer does not know what he did.
Yeah, and she's like, you should forgive yourself. And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. And she's like, I know. And she basically says the same thing to him that Ruby said to Sam, where she's like, when you can, you have people that want to help you. You're not alone. That's all I'm trying to say. And he's like, wait. And then she kisses him. and then, this is very important. Remember this for later. This is very important. He's like, oh, like, what was that for? And she's like, oh, my last night on Earth and all that. And he's like, oh, you're stealing my best line. And then they start making out and they fuck in the back of the car. But before we get to that, I just want you to remember the whole last night on Earth thing and then fucking. This will come up later with Castiel. I want you all to know. I want to scream it from the rooftops now. This will literally
file this away in your brain. This will literally
come up later. The fact
they don't fuck, but they might as well.
And Dean has this. Dean has the same thought. Now, then they fuck in the back of the car, which is it's a pretty.
And they do the fuck ass thing from Titanic where it shows like it's like panning up to the car and then a hand comes onto the steamy window.
But what's important here? There's 2 things that are important about this scene. Number 1, the sex scene is nowhere near as good as the one with Sam. No.
Yeah. It also lasts so long. Like, I was like, oh my God, please. And I feel bad because I'm like, these are 2 very attractive, very, like, nice people. But it's like, oh, there's, like, the chemistry is just, it's like, even when they kissed, I was like, it feels like to me, they really just wanted to have a parallel between Sam and Ruby. And I was like, Cass was right there. You didn't need to do this with Anna.
And then they ended up coding Anna exactly like Cass. So we came around the other way.
Yeah, but it was just like watching it, I was like, oh, there's like no, it was not passionate. Well, it was not like, there was not chemistry. It was passionate, but it wasn't like steamy. And I wasn't feeling like, oh my God, like I'm riveted. On purpose
because like Sam and Ruby have a genuine connection. And then I think like Dean and Anna are more supposed to be like, not a pity fuck, but like, they're just like having,
low-key.
Like high key, but like.
And maybe from her perspective.
And here's another very important part of this scene. You know the mark on his fucking arm from when Castiel pulled him out of of hell? Anna literally puts her hand on it. And they have a weird sexual moment with that. And I'm like, Get away. That is his man.
That's literally like, it's like the myth of consensual sex, and it's like Dean and Anna, and they're like, I consent, and then Castiel is like, I don't.
The thing. That is, like, there's a part later where Cass shows back up where I firmly believe, like, he felt that, and he was like, someone is touching my man. Like...
And then he's like, what? Who said that? He's not my man. What are you talking about? I have no idea what's going on.
And, like, literally, so this happens. They pity fuck. Whatever. It's fine. I love how I think about this scene in far later seasons when their mom is back alive. Spoiler alert. And she's sitting in the back of the Impala. And I'm just like, remember when Dean fucked an angel in the back of the Impala? The wrong angel. And now his mom is there. And then she makes a joke. This spoiler for later Supernatural. She makes a joke to Dean being like, yeah, what me and your dad did in the back of this car. And you're like, whoa. It's so dark.
Gross.
Anyways. So we cut to Ruby by herself going to a crossroads and revealing herself to Alistair by burning a hex bag. They were using hex bags to keep away angels and demons. I was like, that's gonna be some pretty fucking powerful hex bags, but like, okay. And you're like, shit, like, is she betraying them? Is she whatever? And she says to Alistair, she's like, I don't want to get involved with this bullshit. I will give Anna to you as long as you let me and both the boys go. And he's like, why would we do that? Like, no. And he captures her and he starts torturing her with the knife. And
this is also like a really fucked up scene. Because I'm like, first of all, he has her like pinned to like a table. And she's like naked. And it's like, why did she have to be naked for this?
Also,
like,
this is where there's a reference.
Okay, I was watching this. I was fucking gagged in a bad way. He's like torturing her. And he's like, like, it's been a long time. Like, the last time I was up on Earth, like, he's basically talking about how much he loves torturing people and how that's why he loves hell, because he loves torturing people. But he's like, I haven't been up here, like, on this side doing this since, and get this, Poland in 1943.
Like, oh.
Is he implying that he is Joseph Mengele, the angel of death? What the fuck?
Hell?
Supernatural, I fucking hate you so much. Like, what is wrong with you? Why would you...
And it's just like a casual joke, and then they move on, and you're like, what the fuck?
It's a joke! I'm like, what? That's not funny! What are you doing?
Damn! What the fuck? So that happens. She's getting tortured on a fucking medieval rack. So that happened.
That happened.
This is...
you guys want to take a look at this?
This is so dark. But he's torturing her, and she won't give up Anna's location. She's like, I won't tell you, but I'll take you there. And you're like, oh my god, is she going to betray them? Whatever. We cut to Dean.
This is a crazy fucking scene, dude.
Dean walking into that fuck-ass barn. Post-fuck. Putting on his little clothes, whatever. And he turns around, and suddenly Uriel is there. And Uriel makes this joke at him being like, oh, it's really funny when the monkeys wear clothes. And you're like, damn, he hates humans for real.
Uriel is such a weird random character. I'm like, they wrote him with one purpose, and it's to be antagonistic. And it's like, I'm totally down with having a character who's antagonistic, but it's like, he's so mean to the point that it's tiring. And that it's just like, what's the point? Like, he doesn't feel like a character. He just feels like you wrote him to be a bully, and not in like a fun, and like, I think evil it's way, but in a like, he's just. And I think it's on
purpose to show how different he is from Cass, because all the angels are supposed to be kind of assholes, but Cass is like they're supposed to be a good cop, bad cop, and Cass is supposed to be the good cop here. And I know that's what they were trying to do, but it's also just like, it's like, all right, we get it, like Uriel, whatever. I'm like, calm down, we get it. I feel like I like it better with the angels later on when they're kind of dispassionate and they're like, well, we don't really give a fuck. So, that feels better to me. I can respect Uriel's hater energy. That I have to respect. So, Uriel is fucking taunting him, and Dean's like, okay, well, if the only way that you can be here is if this is a dream. So this is a dream, right? Dean is asleep. And And Uriel's like, yeah, because you guys are hiding from us, so this is the only way I could talk to you. And
because Dean's like, oh yeah, well, you know, Anna's like all powerful now. She got her grace back. And Uriel's like, that would be really fucking crazy considering I have it.
You know what?
And I'm wearing it as an amulet.
He gagged us with that. Like, I was like...
Also, with, like, the symbology that we see of, like, Angel's graces, like, going forward in this show, I'm like, I feel like it's kind of, like, fucked up of him to just have that. Like, it's kind of like having a vial of, like almost like having a vial of human blood around your neck. Like, I don't know. I just feel like the other angels would be kind of, like, off-put by that. Maybe that's why Castiel is, like, has so much beef with him, because he's just, like, we're coworkers, but, like, that guy's weird as fuck.
I think that's also a part of it, also, is that, like, an angel choosing to, like, take out their own grace is kind of like a human taking out their own soul, whatever. And, like, it feels fucked up and weird to them, which is why they're, like, she's gotta go. Like, I think it's a part of the, like, grossness to them, and they're trying to get that across. But basically, the grace is, like, a little necklace with a vial that's glowing, whatever. It's quite funny to me. And he's like, you have to give us Anna. And Dean's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And then Uriel's like, wait, what does he say? He's like, oh, so you got a piece of that angel food cake?
He's like, yeah, we got some angel food cake. Like, oh my god, did you take a slice, Dean Winchester? What the fuck? And then Dean is like, oh, well, I'm sorry. It's not my fault that you're smooth like a Ken doll down there. And Uriel's like, mama, like, okay. Kind of read me with that.
Okay, like, and it's so wild. And he's like,
also,
Uriel at this point is like, he's like, okay, well, and Dean's like, what are you gonna do? Kill me? And Uriel's kind of like, he's like, I don't have to. I know what your weak spot is. I'm offering you a choice. And, like, I think the implication there is either he would hurt Sam.
I think that's what the implication is. But the other thing, too, is at the beginning of this conversation, so the way that this had sort of happened was that he was like, girl, I'll fucking send you back to hell. That's what we said we'd do. And Dean's like, I don't think you'll do it. Fine, send me back to hell. Do it. Do it. And Uriel's like, oh, well, you're replaceable. Like, you're replaceable in our planet. And I'm watching this like, no, the fuck he's not. Like, what are you talking about?
Big time.
But then he's like, yeah, but Dean is basically saying like, oh, well, you can just send me to hell. And Uriel's like, you're fucking crazy. Okay, fine. Well, we won't send you to hell. Basically implying like, we're going to fuck Sam up. There's also a part where Dean in this conversation asks like, well, why are you here by yourself? Why
oh my god, I forgot.
And this is the part that's like,
hello, like Dean, whenever, like, they've literally only met a couple times, and Dean is like, Cass? Is Cass here?
But it's that. But then Uriel says, see, he has this weakness. He likes you.
This is the first time
he canonically likes Dean. Canonically likes him. Likes him.
And I have to emphasize, this is the first of many times where a third party character will go, oh, well, you know, your boyfriend over there, or he likes you, or he loves you, or this is his weakness, or he's whatever. This happens so many times. And this happens right after Dean fucked another angel. You're like, hello? Like, when I say that it's from the jump, it's from the fucking jump. You're like, hello? Like, it's wild. It's wild, and it's crazy, and it's bonkers making. And he's like, he likes you. And I'm like, hello?
You're like, yeah, no shit. Fork found in kitchen.
Ben Edlund was not lying. The next day, they're in this fuck-ass barn, and Uriel and Castiel show up to take Anna, and they're like, we're taking her. And they're like, how the fuck did they find us? And Sam and Anna are looking at Dean, and they're like, what the fuck? And then Anna realizes it, and she's like, oh, they gave you a choice. They manipulated you. It was either me or Sam, and you chose Sam. And she looks at him, and she's like, I totally understand, and I'm going to give myself up, whatever. And she kisses him, and I swear to God,
this is fucking crazy, guys. Like, I'm not joking, and because I know. Okay, I have to make it clear. I know that we are so like Destiel pilled. I get it. I understand. We sound skewed, but like this is like I'm not joking. This is exactly. It is literally. What were you gonna say, Claudia? Go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's literally they kiss, and it cuts to fucking Cass's face. And he's looking
He's watching them.
He is so jealous.
I'm telling you, I really think that this was the moment he realized, like, wait, if I rebel, could I get some of that punani? And then he's like, oh my god, no, who said that? I'm not thinking that.
And I bet this is the moment where he was like, oh, that's what I felt when she, like, touched the mark or whatever, and he was like, oh, she was getting some of that. And also, again, this is a part of the whole thing of him realizing of, like, wait, should I? Hold on. Like, so you're saying a part of him falling and a part of his thing was being jealous of someone who got to fuck Dean? Are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Like, it's in the shots. Like, it's like, he didn't have to make that face. They didn't have to frame it. They could have shown, like, him and Uriel, but they don't. Anyways, so Anna is, like, gonna sacrifice herself for them, which I'm like, why? But, like, I think at this point she realizes that they've got her ass. Like, she has nowhere to go at this point, so I guess it kind of makes sense. And suddenly, as Castiel is having his gay little moment, Ruby appears, injured as fuck, with Alistair, and the demons and the angels are throwing insults at each other. It is, the girls are fighting, and then suddenly they start physically fighting. And Uriel is throwing bitches around and whatever. And during this fight, Anna steals her grace back from Uriel. And
there's another scene
yeah.
There, as this is happening, Cass is getting his shit kicked by like Alistair.
Oh my God.
Who's like, Alistair's like holding Cass's face and is like whispering incantations in Latin. And then what happens? But Dean comes up and kicks him off of him, despite the fact that probably what they should have done is just fucking left because, you know, the angels and demons are fighting. But he was like, I gotta save my baby daddy.
Literally, like, and again, this is the first of many times where they will be saving each other. And this is like, the whole thing is that, like, the only person Dean ever cares about or tries to save is like his brother. So then he's like, wait, I gotta save Cass. And like, Cass looks up at him as like, I feel like this is the moment that Cass was like, wait.
Cass was, at that moment, combined with seeing him kiss Anna and then this, he put together, he was like, oh, I want him so like, bad style. It's embarrassing.
He's like, is this what humans feel like when they fall in love? Wait, I swear to God, I think that's the moment. Because he looks up at Dean and you're like, whoa! Like, it's...
No, it's so, guys, it's sick and fucking twisted.
And it cuts from that to Anna being like, ha, gotcha, and pulls her grace necklace from Uriel, and Uriel's like, what the fuck? Because Uriel just got his ass beat, and she, like, throws it on the ground to break it, and, like, to, like, absorb her grace again, and she starts to, like, convulse, and then she's like, all right, everybody, close your eyes, because this is gonna be an explosion of grace everywhere, and, she is, like, convulsing or whatever, and everybody, like, covers their eyes, Ruby, all the humans, whatever, and basically the explosion of her grace basically destroys Alistair, and she's gone. She's not dead! She's gone. You're like, she clearly escaped. Uriel and Castiel leave, and...
They're both like, no, it is so funny, because there's a part where Uriel is like, this isn't over. And Dean's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's over, jackass. And he kind of goes to, like, roll up on Dean, and Cass, like, grabs his shoulder and, like, is like, no, we gotta go. Like, we fucked up big time.
He's like, oh. He's like, I don't have time to... Not now, gay feelings. It's so...
There's also a scene, too, where... like, Sam is like, oh my god, like, Ruby, you were tortured by the angel of death, are you okay? And she's like, no.
She's like, do I look okay? And
she's like, not really, actually, is the thing.
Once you leave, you find out that this was the plan all along, that they would use Ruby as bait,
they're like, wow,
to get the angels and the demons to fight each other and solve this problem.
Yeah. They're like, or use Anna as bait, but they're like, yeah, oh my god, Sam, that was such a good idea to bring the two forces together. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, it's like because earlier Ruby had said this is like Bigfoot and Mothra
No,
fighting.
This is like a Godzilla and Mothra fighting.
Godzilla, oh my god, Bigfoot. Listen, Bigfoot, you are getting your ass beat. But this is like Godzilla and Mothra fighting, so Sam, it's like a fun callback. He's like, well, when you know Godzilla and Mothra are fighting, you just get out of their way. And it's like, oh, haha, oh, Sam, fade to black. But then it's not just a fade to black because there's one more scene.
And then we have our very typical epilogue of the episode. The two boys are drinking next to the car and having a conversation scene. They are on the side of the road. They're having a beer. And Dean is, I will say, Jensen is acting the shit out of this scene. He is crying. He is whatever. And Dean starts to tell Sam about his time in hell. And because he realizes that he's like, they know. Like, the angels know. I need to tell Sam. And Sam's like, I know you said I wouldn't get it, whatever. And he's like, he starts out with this thing that we've talked about before, but has never been said in the show before. With that, he's like, for you, it was a year. For me, it was more like 40 years. And Sam's like, oh, wow.
I think it was said in the show. I think Lilith said that to him, like when he was having that hallucination of Lilith in that one episode.
Doesn't know.
So I think Sam didn't know until now.
And he's like, it was like 40 years. And Sam's like, oh, wow. And he's like, it's not just like the things that they did to me. It's the things that I did to other people. And he starts to explain, and he's like, every day that Alistair fucker would torture me, and at the end of the day, he would be like, well, you can come off the rack, and you don't have to endure this anymore if you torture other people. And he's like, I refused for 30 years. And then I broke. And he's like, for the next 10 years, the things I did to people, I'm not to people's souls, and I ripped people apart, and it was excruciating. And this is a callback to, I want to say, was it Meg who said this, or Ruby who said this, whatever, that like the way that demons are made is that
it was Ruby,
is that human souls are tortured and then become torturers themselves so much that they become demons. So like the implication is that Dean would have become a demon this way because he had started torturing people in hell. And Dean is like sobbing, like he's like sobbing, whatever, and it's like it is genuinely heartbreaking. You're like, holy fuck.
There's this part, like, at the very end, I think one of the last things Dean says is, and this is, like, one of my favorite reaction images to use right now, which is bad, because it is really traumatic, but he's like, Sammy, I wish I couldn't feel a damn thing.
Yeah.
It's, like, it's so sad, because, like, he's like, it was so terrible, I just wish I couldn't feel anything anymore, but as a reaction image, anytime anything is, like, mildly annoying, like, I'm like, oh my god, I ran out of the coffee creamer, I wish I couldn't feel a damn thing.
Like, sorry to Dean, I'm so sorry, but, like, he's like, I had to go through everybody, she's like, I wish I could feel nothing, and you're like, whoa, and then it's, like, cuts to black, and the episode, you're like, what the fuck? All in all, these two episodes are, I would say, close to ground zero for Castiel. Like, when I say that the Anna thing is important, because also a piece of this is that Dean would never see himself fucking a monster. Sam, unfortunately, has a couple times, but Dean still sees angels as monsters. So him willingly fucking an angel because he realizes that they're not that different. I know what you are.
Guys, it's literally ground zero. It's literally like I also just think it's so fucked because I really do try to go into this show. Like, whenever we watch it, obviously I have Castiel brainworms. Like, let's get that straight. But when we watch the show, I do try to watch it from the perspective of someone who's like, what if I was just watching the show? Because I always see people, like, whenever I make a TikTok, not to talk about TikTok, but whenever I'll make a TikTok or like look at it online, like there are always people who are like, I watched the whole show and I didn't see anything between Dean and Cass. And I'm like, okay, I'm genuinely curious. Like, I want to watch it from that perspective. But then in episodes like this, where it's like so clearly a parallel, even if it wasn't like 100% intended that way, even if it was a little bit intended that way, it's like, wow, I don't know how you wouldn't get that from this. And especially the scene where like Anna kisses Dean and is like, I forgive you, like, I'm gonna go now. I'm like, I really don't know any other way to interpret that other than Cass being like, wait, I want that, and I want to rebel. Like, it's the seeds being planted of him rebelling. And it's like, I'm also not even thinking of it just because I think we have a tendency, not necessarily we as in the two of us, but like people have a tendency when they talk about like queer men and like especially gay ships that are really popular, people talk about them from like a sexual perspective. And we've all both talked about this, about like, it's kind of weird as shit that whenever Misha Collins talks about Castiel, he almost always talks about them fucking. And it's like, hey, that's actually like not the whole thing.
That was something we didn't talk about.
Misha Collins was like, oh my god, like people ask like, which one do I want to fuck? Like, he was just on some shit.
He said something that they like, that they were fucking nasty style or something, and you're like, excuse me?
Yeah, he was like, he said if the CW wasn't so homophobic, they would have been like fucking nasty.
And you're like,
which is crazy.
I say that daily, but you can't say that.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's like also like the whole point is it's like, and I think we're guilty of this, but I think everyone low-key is, but it's like, it's important to look at this from a perspective that isn't just like, oh, I'm thinking of queer love and I'm thinking of queer, like a queer subtext as lust. Because what I'm seeing here is not like, oh, Cass is like, oh my god, I want him like sexual style. I mean, maybe that's there, but
it's like, there later.
This is clearly real, but it's like, it's clearly an emotional, like intimate. It's like an intimacy that Cass craves that he doesn't get in the rigid structure that he has. And I think that this is a moment of him seeing like, oh my god, I could have that. And I think that might be the only way you could interpret it, not from like a Destiel perspective. But I'm also like, even that is like such
and there are many other things that occur that are like, oh no, this is definitely from romantic. Also, fun fact, in the trivia, this will make you crazier. It says there's a deleted scene from this episode where Cass and Uriel discuss the aftermath of Anna's escape, and Uriel wants to kill Sam and Ruby because of that, and Cass is like, our superiors said that they have to be left unharmed, and Uriel's mad, and Castiel responds by warning him against disobedience lest he become like Anna. And I'm like, wait, so you realize that you're a little bit like Anna, and you're like, wait, that can't be happening. That can't be happening, no. So what we're saying is we're comparing ourselves to Anna in our brain. That's so interesting.
No, you think he said that and Uriel was like, oh, what? Who the fuck is comparing anybody to Anna? Why'd you say that? Why'd you bring that up?
Music being Ready for Love by Bad Company. Oh, Ready for Love.
That song playing, no, because that song playing while Dean and Anna are fucking is so random. I'm like, why is this happening to me personally? It felt like an attack.
It's so interesting. Also, the description of Godzilla and Mothra in the wiki is very funny. Ruby compares the angels and demons to Godzilla and Mothra. While normally staunch allies, the two legendary kaiju have clashed many times in their 50-odd-year history, usually with highly destructive results.
I would love to meet the person who writes the trivia on the Supernatural wiki. I mean, I know it's probably multiple people, but some of these facts, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Why'd you feel like this was important context?
Yeah. Also, knowing what Anna does and how she fits in later, this episode is also funny because I'm like, oh, I forgot that they fucked nasty style. I forgot.
Yeah, she's like, she did that, and then she was like, okay, I got other shit to focus on.
She was like, thanks for that's what happens when you fuck a gay man. You realize that it's not for you.
And with that, thank you so much.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. For more cursed supernatural content, you can follow us on social media. We're at Mystery Spotcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, basically anywhere. That's what we're at. You can email us. We're themysteryspotcast@gmail.com. And we always appreciate a review. I know they have that option on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, Overcast. Tell your friends. We appreciate it. We also have a submission form, so if you have any Destiel fanfictions or any honestly supernatural fanfictions that you want us to see, please feel free to submit that. We very much appreciate it. It's not really for the show, it's just for us. If you want to hear more from us, we are two of the co-hosts of RuPaul's Pod Race, a queer Star Wars podcast. We are back covering Star Wars. We are ready to talk about The Acolyte. Very excited for that. So check that out if you're a Star Wars fan, or not. Honestly, if you just like to, I don't know, put it on while you sleep. That was weird. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, we'll see you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, queer baiting things, the supernatural business.